Hello everyone, I'm Ritika Amit Kumar, the co-founder of Curious Kids Media Tech Private Limited. Since I've been in the STEM space for a while, I've always waited for changes to take place in the education policy of India. So it's very heartening to see that the new education policy is a very progressive document. It covers all the pitfalls or all the gaps we saw in education. Actually, most gaps that we saw as educators in India's education policy until now, or education system until now. So I'll be covering, I've actually made notes. So I'll be covering this policy in three parts. The first one is pedagogy. Then we'll talk about teachers training in the second part. And the third one will be about monitoring and implementation. And we'll only be talking about the school years, not the higher education part, because school years is my domain essentially. So we've all heard that the education system will be changed from 10 plus 2 into 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So let's talk about that. I think you may have already heard about it, but I'll still reiterate. Age 3 to 8 is going to be the foundational years, and that's going to have two parts. One is going to be the preschool part that we call the preschool part until now, between 3 to 5, and then 5 to 8 is going to be the kindergarten part, and grade 1 and grade 2. Then you have the preparatory phase, that's age 8 to 11. Then you have the middle school phase, that's the 11 to 14 age group. Then we have the secondary school phase, that's age 14 to 18. So in the early years, between age 3 to 8, that's 5 years, children are going to be introduced to numbers, characters, letters, sounds, phonics, and everything in a very playway method. So basics of reading and number skills are going to be covered in this period, so that children who cross the stage are at least able to read and compute to a basic level. There is going to be strong emphasis on thinking skills. They're going to be moving on to the preparatory phase, where there will be a little more detail in terms of reading, a little more computational skills will be developed a little more. There will be an introduction to math and science, and thereafter in the middle school phase, those skills are going to be developed further. There will be stronger emphasis on building high critical thinking, problem solving, building higher order thinking skills. And then in the secondary phase is where children are going to be choosing their subjects and streams. And of course, board exams are going to be happening, but the format of those exams are going to change. I'll come to it in a bit. Coming to languages. So in the early years, the foundational years, there will be emphasis on using the mother tongue as the medium of education. Children are going to be encouraged to learn 3 languages, because this is the age where children pick up languages really fast. So they're going to be focusing on introducing more languages in the foundational years and the preparatory years. And it's likely that there are going to be 3 languages followed, 2 Indian languages and 1 foreign language. And in those Indian languages, they've laid emphasis on certain, on the older languages like Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Odia. So one would definitely be your mother tongue, the mother tongue of the child, the mother tongue. Possibly the state might have a say in what the language of instruction is going to be. And thereafter, the second language, children hopefully, since they've spoken so much about flexibility and children having the choice to choose their subjects a lot, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on hopefully children will be able to choose their second language depending on what is available. I'll get to the implementation bit where it will be clearer in terms of how schools plan to implement using languages or teaching languages that may not have resources in that particular city. For example, a city like Bareilly may not have a Tamil teacher. So let's come to that, because this is my interpretation. This has not been explicitly stated in the policy, but this is what I could infer, that they're looking at building a cluster of schools, and there will be shared resources where certain teachers might be shared by 2 or more schools as well. So, that'll come in the interpretation, in the implementation part of it. But they have laid emphasis on having more than one Indian language, and they have laid emphasis on using at least and teaching at least one of the ancient languages, that's Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and Oriya. And this is likely to be, it's likely that between grade 6 to 12, children are going to be focusing on these languages as well. And there will be one foreign language, possibly English, and or you could possibly choose another language as well. One language, of course, is going to be our mother tongue. So that's that. And of course, I'm pretty sure that schools will offer a flexibility to choose even languages apart from the ancient languages specified here. So I like the fact that they've mentioned these languages, because there is a lot of text available in these languages, and especially in Sanskrit. And you find that since many of us cannot read Sanskrit, a lot of this text is unusable, is uninterpretable. So that's this is one part about languages. The second bit that they have explicitly mentioned, especially in the secondary phase of education, is that children will be able to choose streams, subjects across arts and science. So there won't be the strong line between science, art, and commerce. So I'm hoping that a child who wants to take up psychology will also be able to take up some art subjects like sociology, as well as certain science subjects, to facilitate this, to ensure that if he wants to become a psychologist, then it really helps him later on. So that is interesting. A fashion designer could choose commercial drawing along with mathematics, and so on and so forth. An entrepreneur would definitely need some accounting skills, but his startup could be in any field. Like mine is in the field of STEM, so I would require science as well as certain accountancy subjects, commerce subjects. So it's very interesting that they thought about this, and they're looking at ways to implement this. So there is no hard segregation between science, commerce, and art, and that would be rather interesting. What I like is that we've come a long way from right to education, and we are now looking at making it more inclusive, and talking about value education, talking about pedagogical changes, about STEM-based education, about inclusion of big data, AI, machine learning, critical thinking and design thinking skills. We're talking about building character. We're talking about re-establishing teachers at all levels as the most essential and respected parts of society. So that, being in a document is is heartening to see. When they talk about inclusion, they also talk about different genders, not just socio-economic differences. And when they talk about teacher training, they also talk about ensuring that teachers are equipped to bridge these gaps between different genders, not just male and female, but also the other genders, and bridge socioeconomic gaps, bridge geographical gaps, language-oriented gaps, caste-oriented gaps, so on and so forth. So it's quite heartening to see a document mention all these things. Makes us realize that the government is acknowledging that these are gaps in education today. So they're looking at flexibility of learning. They want to make education dynamic for every child, and for this they have actually introduced they've introduced assessment mechanisms. So now I'm coming to the assessment bit. PARAK. PARAK, the full form of PARAK is Performance, Assessment, Review, Analysis, Knowledge, and Holistic Development. They love acronyms actually, it seems. So PARAK is going to design assessments across all these different stages that I just mentioned: foundation years, preparatory years, middle years, and the secondary years. And they're going to design performance reports, progress reports rather, and across several different parameters, not what we have today, not marks, but also they'll be looking at psychometric parameters, and they'll be designing parameters across not just studies and but also personality and how well rounded the individual is. They also talk about allowing children to take standard level of assessment, or studying a particular subject where they have an aptitude, a higher level of aptitude at an advanced level. So today, say if I want to study math and I want to become a scientist, or I want to study math at an advanced level, I will have that option, whereas somebody else who might not be that great at math can also study it at a standard level in the same grade. So that makes it very, very dynamic and very, very interesting to see. They talk about Olympiads and competitions and quizzes and introducing more of those things. They also talk about reducing the gap between curricular and co-curricular activities. So that's the great part. The second part I'll now talk about is the teacher assessment. Currently, a lot of us have concerns regarding teacher eligibility tests not being passed by many teachers. But here is what they say. They say that they're going to be introducing scholarships for the B.Ed program to ensure that the best people get into it. They'll also be looking at ensuring getting schools to forecast their teaching requirements for the next 2 decades, and then they will plan accordingly on how many teachers, how many courses they need. They're looking at introducing B.Ed in all the colleges as a professional course, which doesn't happen currently. A lot of mainstream universities don't have B.Ed as a course in the undergraduate or the graduate level. It's offered mainly at a postgraduate level, but it's going to be offered as a 4-year course at the graduate level as well. And there will also be options wherein if a person takes a regular graduation, a BA or a BSc, can take a top-up kind of B.Ed program as well, and then enter the teaching line. And once he or she clears the teaching eligibility test, they will be allowed to. So this is going to be a prerequisite to join any school as a teacher. So teachers will not be required to spend time in non-teaching activities, which I think should make a lot of present teachers very, very happy. There will be socio-emotional learning as well. There will be a merit-based structure on tenure, promotion and salary. So this in itself will ensure that there's lesser politics in the system, and that should attract a lot more talent. Teachers are going to be promoted basis KPIs, peer reviews, there will be attendance will be monitored, and the number of hours committed will be monitored. Since some teachers are also going to be shared resources, their competency levels are also going to be mapped. Standards are going to be set for different expertise stages, and teacher training will be conducted, like I said, to bridge gaps. And also, so special teachers are going to be trained in a different manner. Teachers for the early years are going to be trained in a different manner, and there will be teachers for the early years recruited from Anganwadis, and their education levels are going to be monitored accordingly, as well as the requirement for training is also going to be mapped accordingly. But for the senior levels and the prep, which basically means the higher years in the foundation years, as well as the preparatory and the middle and the secondary years, it's going to be important to be B.Ed, and also have these also be part of these teacher training modules on an annual basis, which ensure that your levels of competencies, your understanding of learning disorders, disabilities and inclusion and all those things are sort of taken care of. So those gaps need to be bridged, and hopefully these trainings are going to help in bridging those as well. Apart from bridging gaps in in teaching as well as understanding of certain core subjects. So the a state school standards authority is going to be set up, that's going to be monitoring the safety, security, teaching resources, finances, governance of schools, as well as what is called the school assessment, the state assessment survey, as well as the national assessment survey. So the state assessment survey is going to be monitoring the performance of every school at a state level, and the national assessment survey will do it at a national level. These surveys are going to be basically looking at taking feedback from schools, parents, students, teachers, in terms of monitoring how exactly a school has performed, and these feedback sessions are going to be anonymous. So the schools will never get to know who's actually given that feedback, and all this will likely happen online, so that the state and the center can actually audit every school, and this will ensure that the quality of teachers, at least make us aware of the quality of teachers presently, and will help us ensure that we are able to recruit better and better teachers. This will also keep teachers motivated and will ensure that the better teachers actually scale up, and therefore teachers will be motivated to perform better. So their attendance and all those things will be monitored here. And the monitoring body here is going to be CBSE and the Ministry of Education. The best part is that so essentially now let's look at it this way. I'm also touching upon the implementation bit, wherein the NCERT is going to be figuring out and designing the learning outcomes across all the different learning years that we spoke about, and at the end of every phase of the learning years, of the schooling years, the tests and tests is the wrong word, assessment is going to be designed by Parak, and so after that the State Achievement Survey and the National Achievement Survey is going to monitor how exactly every school has done. After that, I think I called it State Assessment Survey, it's State Achievement Survey actually before, and so that monitoring is going to happen at that level, and then the CBSE and the Ministry of Education is going to audit the whole process. So they're going to be auditing all the bodies across this process. The other part that I mentioned was that the state secondary standards, the state school standards authority is going to be monitoring the needs of every school, and where their resources lack, what kind of funding is required and what it's lacking, and for that to bridge that gap, they're going to be figuring out clusters. Now what is happening is that there are a lot of schools that have opened up in single buildings in small pockets. They're going to be assessing if these schools can be clubbed to form bigger entities, so that the resources can be pooled in together, and then ensure, because see, for any small entity to be running a STEM based lab and to have sports integration and art integration and everything else is a little difficult. So that clubbing of premises, the clubbing of entities, consolidation of school resources is going to be something that they're going to be considering. Of course, they will not want children to be traveling too long distances to go to one consolidated entity, and consolidation is going to take time because different parties are going to be involved, but they're at least thinking about it, and they're also talking about shared resources. So wherever there is a paucity of resource, they will actually see if that resource can be pulled out as a consultant from another school and used in another one as well. So now this basically comes to the point where at the school level we have a lot of private infrastructure. Here the policy states that that the public level of education will actually be made so strong that people across different socioeconomic groups would want to be part of the public education system and not the private education system. So having access, because the public education system will also have access to the best of resources, and it will be able to sort of pull out and plug in a lot of teaching resources from different areas and spheres. So that would be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see how that actually gets done. But I'm happy to see that, that they're talking about making this change, because it's high time. Private enterprises, of course, some of them are doing a very good job, but some of them definitely lack in infrastructure and the vision to carry things out. Uh, I do believe that education cannot completely be a for-profit enterprise uh, or domain. It needs to be philanthropic at the core of it. The policy does say that schools are going to be not for profit, and of course that's something that will need to be seen. But what I like is that they talk about uh, philanthropy being at the core of everything. It's a bit of an idealistic document, I would say, but it can be implemented. It's fairly implementable, and since they're already looking at decentralizing the whole process, and ensuring that there is a different monitoring system, a different assessment agency, a different agency designing the learning outcomes and the courseware, a different audit agency. This basically shows that they are focusing on a more inclusive growth in education system and pattern, and if we get to it, I think it will be made rather very it could be very smooth and very interesting. So I'm hopeful. Of course, seeing the current state of affairs, it's not easy to achieve because we are very fragmented at this point in time. We've got a lot of private institutions with their private agendas and all of those running, and consolidation is going to be a huge task, if at all. But if the government opens up certain policies and comes up with certain norms, you never know what could happen. Maybe these private enterprises could actually be motivated to come under the public domain, or figure out partnerships and create entities that become part of the public domain. So I think this document is going to be followed by a couple of other facilitating policy changes as well. So I'm hoping and I'm waiting to see what's going to come forth. But looking at the way the vision behind this document, and how they feel it's going to be implemented, it's very positive and progressive. Thank you.